Let's. Okay, welcome to our third Digitized Wonder Woman meetup, and it's our second Digitized Wonder Woman that we're meeting today, Amanda. We're really happy and proud and excited to have you here with us.
Same for me, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
We were discussing at the beginning when we started getting Digitized Wonder Woman going, who had inspired us, and I remember the first time I met you, I thought this young woman, because you're very young, has done so much in her life, and it made me slightly embarrassed about what I did with my younger years. But that's why I think that you are a Digitized Wonder Woman, and that's why we're really happy to have you here.
Really, really feel blessed to be here.
So we have some questions for you. So shall we start with that?
Go right ahead.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you and where are you working at this moment in time?
Right. So like Isabel said, my name is Amanda, and currently I'm working for Google for Education here in Sweden. But I'm not going to say a long, illustrious career because, like you said, I'm not that old. But I worked in IT pretty much since finishing up my university studies. So I managed to be able to hit HP, Cisco, and Google, amongst others.
Yeah, that's a little bit more than I have done. And how did your career look like, or your progress? I mean, is it okay if we talk about how old you are?
Sure. Sorry, I turned 27 yesterday.
Yeah,
so happy birthday, December child. I mean, I think that I stepped into my university studies knowing that I wanted to study IT. My two parents in the IT industry had or have a mother who used to work for Microsoft. We're there for 25 years. A dad who's an IT consultant. So I was around IT growing up, and I always had someone to ask when I had questions. So I knew that I wanted to do something that had to do with IT. So I stepped into a university program studying economy and IT, but got my bachelor's degree in computer and system sciences. Then I moved on and started doing my master's in digital media technology, and I got recruited while at uni. So I then moved to HP, and I was working for what was then called HP. It was before the split, but in the part of HP that's now called HP Enterprise. So it was infrastructure. So I think I got a good foundation understanding the underlying infrastructure that powers everything and makes sure that we can be on Hangouts right now, for example. I then moved on to a short stint at Google in between. So I got the whole software part there, and moved back, I was going to say, to Sweden because I was abroad working for HP and for Google. Moved back into infrastructure working for Cisco. And then I started working with education for a short while for a small startup. So I got the whole small startup company vibe as well in between Cisco, and then started working for Google. So back into software again after Cisco. And then come January, I'm actually going to start working for the Swedish police force.
That's not bad for being 27. We'll sing happy birthday in Spanish at the end.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, thank you. Looking forward.
I wanted to ask you, because at the beginning you mentioned your family was very much involved with IT, right? You had your mom and your dad. How much of an impact do you think that had in your choice of career? Because we've been talking a lot about the power of representation, how important it is to see people in the careers you will eventually, could be potentially chosen. So, when we think of IT,
yeah,
the stereotype is usually male. How much impact did this special situation you had at home had in your choice of a career?
I think it impacted quite a lot. So I have an amazing mother who used to drag me to all kinds of events. I was part of, so she was one of the people at Microsoft. She was working towards the education sector, who started up DigiGirls. So I went to that boot camp. I went to like a coding boot camp, and I was always sort of encouraged from both my parents, but like my mom really dragged me to events that were IT focused, and a lot of the times also focused on women in IT. So I had, the great opportunity to see a lot of brilliant women in IT from a fairly young age, and I think that of course affected me. Plus, I also think that having someone to ask when you're unsure as well really sort of helped me out, because that meant that I could be curious and I would still be able to get the answers that I needed or wanted when I had questions.
And studying at university, how many, if you look at the ratio, how many female students were there in comparison to males? And you studied here in Sweden, so it's quite unique. I read an article on Monday that said the IT workforce in Sweden is almost gender equal. There's still a bit left to go, but
I don't think so in IT roles. I mean, I worked for Cisco. I've worked for HP, and there was quite a lot fewer women. Like the goal was always to have an equally balanced workforce where you had 50% men and 50% women. I think the numbers that I have that I know the best is Cisco. I think we were about 30% women and 70% men. And I think it was roughly along those lines in my studies as well. I think I'm quite a bad person to ask, because I was working part-time during all of my university studies. So I only attended university when I had like lectures and papers that needed to be handed in. I was otherwise at work. But I do remember that there was also sadly quite a few girls who dropped out during the studies, or since I had a split line where you could either choose the field of IT or the field of economics, a lot of them went into economics instead of IT. So I think it was a brilliant line, because it gave us an understanding of both the IT and the economical side of things. But I chose to focus on the IT, while a lot of my sort of university buddies went towards the economical part. There was also like a combination line that did marketing and IT, where there were loads more girls, but then most of them veered towards marketing and not IT when they had to decide in the third year what they wanted to do.
if you were to choose one word to describe you,
what
would you choose, and why?
There's like a running down of two. Either it would be problem solver, because I mean I do think that anything can be solved, that anything is possible if you put a little bit of time and effort into it. Or I would say that it would be driven, because usually I do know what I want, and I'm usually not afraid to go after it. So it would be sort of a way down between those two words. But maybe, Isabel, you can help me choose, who've seen me in action.
I think it's problem solver. I think it's you. You've always been. And also when thinking about our collaboration, whenever there has been issues, I've been able to turn to you and get help. I'm going to scream at my children right now, so give me to.
That is actually a Wonder Woman in action. That's the thing we were discussing. Sometimes you have to divide yourself in so many roles at the same time. Yeah. I'm actually, instead of panicking, and I think I'm glad that it happens, because it shows what we're dealing with. I just rushed from work to get here. Isabel is dealing with her family at the same time. So yeah, perfect.
I managed to actually solve my PC problems just before, because my camera in one of my laptops didn't work. So there you go. Yeah, solving problems.
Yeah, I think that's perfect.
I'm sorry, they were fighting about the Xbox. Technology making life better. I'm thinking, if you were able to talk to the 15-year-old Amanda, Do you think that she would see you, the position that you're working right now in, as somewhere that where she would want to be? Is this where you envisioned yourself in the future?
No, not at all. If I'm to be honest, I think that 15-year-old me had like way grander plans than I think what I or where I see myself wanting to be now. In my late teens, which is like a decade ago, pretty much, I had this plan, like I was going to be a CEO of a Fortune 500 company before turning 30. Like that was the plan, that was the goal. And then I realized the older I became that what I really wanted and what I still do want is to make a difference in whatever role I fill. And I think that working with sort of society in general and like making a difference. So if it's with education or if it's like I'm going to do now with the police force, where hopefully my work really will impact and make society better. That's what I want to do now. That's what I'm passionate about. That's, you know, where I feel good and where I feel that I might make a difference. And I think that all of those like grander plans that you have when you're younger, I think they grow and evolve as you do through life. And I think that 15-year-old me probably wouldn't recognize me today. And I don't think that she would want to be where I am today. Whereas now, being older and having been through this journey myself, I'm actually super happy and feel like I'm in the right place.
I mean, when I look at you, I'm super amazed. And the 15-year-old me, if I were in your position at your age, she would have been dead chuffed. but that's me.
I'm like CEO of a Fortune 500 company, which was like the overall goal at that time. And where I am now, I mean, I've had people tell me that, oh, you've managed to do so much. And I'm like, but what have I really been able to sort of like affect? What have I been able to bring about? And I think that that's the most important part. I really do want to make a positive impact. I had someone ask me when I started working for Google, this time around, working with the EDU space, you know, saying, Amanda, now that you're working for Google in Sweden, you know, for Google for Education, like what is it that you want to achieve? And I said, do you want my honest opinion or do you like want my Google answer? And he was like, no, I really want your honest answer. And I said that what I want, and this is still true for me today, what I want is that every single child that steps into the Swedish education system, I want them to be able to finish up school and to be able to step out and become a productive part of society. And if they do that using Office 365 or G Suite or Chromebooks or PCs or iPads, matters less to me than ensuring that every single child that steps into school in Sweden gets the help and support that they need in order for them to become productive adults once they're finished. And so I think that my set of priorities have changed from being like 15 to being 27. And I think that that's kind of healthy. I know that there's amazing people who've, you know, known that they wanted to be doctors or rock stars or something else since they were super young. And then they really do go after that. But for me, I think it's a lifelong journey, like they said. And I think that my goal for where I want to end up has changed quite drastically during the last 12 years.
Amanda, I wanted to ask you, because you just mentioned the fact that you know, sometimes had to interact with a lot of educators while you were working at Google, or maybe in other positions as well. And something we've noticed, I don't know what's the case for Sweden, but one of the reasons why we started Digitised Wonder Women is that we've noticed that in many of the events, educational events, we tend to see, especially if they're connected to EdTech, we tend to see a lot of men, right? Education is quite a female-oriented or balanced profession. But when the time comes for those educators to become more visible, we don't see them. So this is just an honest opinion. I know. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that happens?
I mean, I think that it's shift. If we look at education in general, like it was a very male-dominated profession from the beginning, at least higher education than folkskola that was in Swedish, or that happened in Sweden. And as it changed, I also think that the view on a teacher's position in society changed as well, which is a shame. I think that teachers should be some of the most celebrated, or pretty much one of the most celebrated professions that we have, which is not the case in Sweden today. So I think that we need to change our viewpoint on the role that teachers play. I mean, if we really think about it, they do perform one of the most important things that in society in general, like they're preparing the future generation for life in the future that we most probably won't even be a part of, depending on how old we are. But I do think that women have a tendency to be less good at sort of like, I'm going to borrow Becky Evans, like tooting our own horns. Like, I think it's very common. I don't just think it's with regards to education. I think it's women in general that are way less likely to say, I'm brilliant at doing this. When they're looking at people applying for jobs, and I find it really interesting. It was a report on this. They said that before a woman applies to a position, she feels as though she needs to match the criteria, like all of them, while a man would look at something and say like, yeah, I could probably do this, and will send in his application. So I think the viewpoint on the way we feel, like a lot of women feel like I need to match all of this, and I need to be able to do this, and then are very bad at saying, I'm actually quite brilliant at doing this kind of thing, while I think men in that case, or in a lot of cases, has lower inhibitors in that specific area. And I mean, I think it's mostly around like women just need to say, I'm really good at this. Like I will be able to do this just as well as, another female colleague or a male colleague, but you need to sometimes also speak about yourself and speak out and say, I can do this. I will be brilliant doing this. I can do this presentation if it's for the board or, at an event, but we have less of a tendency to do so.
Yeah, I think working with Digitised Wonder Woman and talking to women that have inspired me has changed the way I think. And now whenever I see a job that I would like to do, if I only meet 2 of the 15 criteria, I just send it in. Like I'll get a note, but still, the more I send it in, the more I will get to.
But on the other hand, like you might actually get it. I mean, yeah. in a lot of job applications, they also say that we place a lot of importance on the suitability of the actual candidates. I mean, skills around, I don't know, software or tech or something else is usually, in a lot of times, something you can teach someone, but teaching someone to be a collaborator, to be a critical thinker, to be a problem solver, those kind of softer skills are much harder to teach. So I think that you just have to go for it.
Yeah,
I think it's super important. And what you said is, I think that the fact that we're sending this message out all the time, and we keep repeating it. I think it's an echo, repetition. The fact that we keep repeating, and we've done this workshop, we mentioned it before, it's called I'm Remarkable, and they always say that it's like a muscle, it's something you need to say to yourself regularly, constantly, all the time. And I found myself in a position where there was this opening, not a job opening, this possibility of joining a program. And, I looked at it for a couple of days, and I was about to hit apply and just kept avoiding it for exactly the reasons you mentioned before. Who am I to apply to this? And they're going to say no, probably, and I don't meet half the criteria, blah, blah, blah. And, I mentioned to a few people I know, and they said that this is perfect for you. It has your name written all over it. I couldn't see myself. And then I remember these phrases that we kept telling each other, the 3 of us as part of the community, and that we keep hearing from Becky, from you, from Les, from Mette, our Digitized Wonder Women, right? No, you can do it. And these are things we need to say to ourselves, because Otherwise, we'll miss out on hundreds of opportunities, right?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I also just think that, you know, you have to love my mother. She always told me, like, Amanda, go for it. Like, the worst thing that could happen is that you get a no. And like, what will that no do? You will know that it is a no, but at least you tried. There's a quote that I love that says that, you know, don't let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game. And I think that that is really important. You shouldn't let your fear of not succeeding hinder you from trying.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's golden. That's something that one should have in the mirror and wake up every morning and go, yeah, that's me. But this whole edtech thing and the whole like this lack of representation of female strong digital leaders is global. I think we're lucky here in Sweden because when you go to set, there are quite a few female. It's quite, yeah. It's quite balanced, I would say. There's still a majority of men, but it's not that noticeable. I was recently in Korea and doing a tech event, and there were 3 women for something.
Oh, it was lovely.
3 women. And wow. I was discussing it with one of my groups, saying, I'm shocked that we're so few women here. They just went, yeah, tell me about it. It's like, well, next time I won't be here. I'll be sitting there and you'll be here presenting because you can do it. But shall we get back to our very professional questions?
Yeah, go for it.
Have you failed at any goals you've set, and what did you learn from these failures?
I mean, wouldn't it be classified as a failure not being, you know, a Fortune 500 CEO before 30? Because that ain't gonna happen. I mean, like, not failed, I think, in a professional capacity. I mean, I failed school assignments. I've like failed to complete stuff in that sense. But I do think that I've been fortunate enough that the things that have been really important that I've taken on, I've managed to power through even when they've gotten really, really hard. And I think that for me, that's mostly to do with, like, I've always had people in my corner believing me. And I think that that's one of the most important things. There's been some really, really tough periods in my life. I was dumb enough while I was at a university during my master's degree to take on 2 projects. So I was the event coordinator for the student incubator at the Royal Institute of Technology. And at the same time, me and another girl was trying to start up IGE Day, which stands for Introduce a Girl to Engineering Day here in Sweden. And that autumn, I was pretty stressed out. Like, I studied full time. I had 2 full-time projects. I worked extra on weekends. I was never off. And I know for a fact that I was really, really close to hitting that wall. And I remember both my mom and my dad telling me, like, Amanda, you have to cut something loose. Like, you have to let something go because otherwise you won't make it. And I felt so bad that I had taken on assignments where I felt that I didn't deliver the best that I possibly could. But I also told myself that, you know, we were so few people in both of those projects. It was just me and one other person. And I felt like I can't let them down. I've managed to put myself in this situation, so I also have to get myself out of it. And with a little bit of elbow grease, as my grandma would have said, and a little bit of effort, I got through that autumn period. But I think that that's the closest that I have become to actually hit the wall. So I think that I'm also a lot better now at managing myself and knowing when I need to take a step back, when stuff starts to pile up and it starts to become too much. And for me, it was a really close call, and it was a wake up call for me as well, because I was what, 20, 21, and I was so stressed out. And you know, they say that if you manage to hit the wall, you never really bounce back 100%. So for me, that was also I think, like I said, it was a wake-up call for me to just understand that, you can't run full steam ahead 7 days a week. I would be emailing at like 2:30 in the morning because that was the only time that I had. And I would like send out 30 of them. And I realized that this is not doable. Like in the long run, you can do it for short periods of time, absolutely, but eventually, like it becomes too much. So you need to prioritize and realize what's important as well.
And last question before we wrap up for today: where do you find inspiration? Anyone you inspire or admire, and why?
I would have to say my grandmother, actually. So she's completely non-tech at all. She's like 2 buttons is 1 button too much. But she's this tiny slip of a thing. She's like 148 centimeters. She worked industrial laundry, which is like a really heavy work. And she was the person who would step up or wake up at like 4 in the morning to be able to be at work at 5 so that she could come and pick me up when I was small at 1 at my daycare, so I got to sleep at home. And she's always been super hardworking, and she never complains. And she is one of those people who, at least I learned from that, everything can be fixed, everything can be solved. Sometimes you just need to put some elbow grease and a little bit of time and effort into it. So yeah, she's been a great inspiration for me. And same goes for my mom, who was like raised in the same spirit and always like taken on and done so much. So yeah, definitely have 2 power ladies, as good people to look up to.
Oh, and that's, I mean, you've achieved so much in 27 years. Okay, maybe not CEO of a company, a 500 company, but still, it's still quite amazing everything that you've achieved, and you have many, many, many more years in front of you. And I don't know if that's good or bad.
It's going up.
But I would like you to thank you for your time, Amanda. You've certainly inspired me. And I'm very happy that you took the time to talk to us today.
Thank you so much, ladies. And Isabel, like you said, we've worked together, and I know that you've been a great inspiration for me as well. So thank you, ladies, for having me. It's been a great pleasure. And to all you amazing women out there, remember to tell people that you're great.
That's a great message.
What did you say, Sabrina?
Sorry, great message to finish. I think it really sums up what we've been discussing and what we've been sharing so far. So I think it's really important. And the more we say it, the more it's going to stick. So
I'm going to say, like, don't let anyone else tell you what you can or can't do. I think that's the most important part. I always get bullheaded when I hear that, when someone tells me like, oh, you can't do that. I'm like, watch me.
I will watch me. No, Perfect. But most definitely, I mean, I get basically, to round off, 3 very important lessons that you share with us. The fact that you have people cheering for you, holding your back, letting you know to step down the accelerator and the gas pedal and to take care of yourself. That is super important, because we sometimes want to do everything, which is not possible. The fact that, if you want to go for it, just go for it. If you get a no, that's the worst thing that can happen. And so thank you so much for sharing your story. I didn't know you before, and I found you incredibly inspirational. So I think our community will find you very inspirational too.
Thank you so much, Sabrina and Isabel.
Alrighty, so that's it for today. So we're going to we have already launched our newsletter. We have some ideas coming up for 2019. We're very excited about. We might be doing even like a meetup in bed in January. So that is very exciting. So Isa, you can round it off if you want.
The most important thing that we're going to do, we're going to start going a little bit international. And the first newsletter will be in Swedish and in English, because we assume that everybody can speak Swedish or read Swedish. And our first digitized Wonder Woman of the year 2019 is going to be in Spanish. So we will be doing the live event in Spanish, and then we'll be taking time to translate and upload some subtitles in English. So if you guys in English will have to wait a week to get the subtitles. Otherwise, you can still listen to us. Sabrina and I change my voice when I talk Spanish, so you might be able to compare, you two, Sabrina. So that's the most exciting things, because we notice that we have many digitized Wonder Woman around the world, but sometimes they feel a little bit uncertain when they have to talk in Swedish, in English, I mean, or write in English. So when I contacted this digitized Wonder Woman, she's asked me if she could write it in Swedish, and I said, absolutely, I'll translate it, because it's very important to get her story out. And the same thing with our Spanish digitized Wonder Woman of the month. So that is why we're starting to be a little bit more international, and that's super exciting. And with that, we wish you Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Feliz Navidad, Prospero Año Nuevo. And Amanda, do you want to take it in Swedish? Because you are actually Swedish.
God jul och gott nytt år.
And we'll see you back in 2019, and hopefully see some of you live face to face and bet with little that much. See you around.